Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Norman Seligman. I'm the CEO of the Sydney Jewish Museum, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all here this afternoon for our webinar and the opening of Wendy Sharpe's exhibition, Wo ist das Gesele? Where is the little street? I would like to especially welcome all those Holocaust survivors that have joined in this afternoon, and also a special welcome to Archibald-winning artist, Wendy Sharpe. Before going any further, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where I am situated, the Gadigal clan of the Eora Nation. We acknowledge and give thanks to the elders and traditional custodians, past, present, and future. May we walk with care on this land that has provided a home for our community. We regularly receive rave reviews from our visitors and accept with pleasure the many visitor and peer comments that we are a world-class museum. Over the years, we have had many temporary exhibitions. Some have attracted huge audiences, and some we would have liked more people to visit. But we've never ever had an exhibition that never opened at all. But sadly, that is a sign of the crazy times we live in. Wendy, I'd like to thank you for putting in so much effort to create an outstanding exhibition, despite the fact that we realized all along that there was a great risk that the public would never get the opportunity to see it. It was a privilege for me to have the opportunity to see the exhibition come to life over a 2 to 3 week period. I'd like to thank our head curator, Roz Sugarman, operations manager, Viva Wolf, marketing manager, Ilana Gertzkis, and educator, Dr. Simon Holloway, for the work they've put into making today's event happen. And there are also a number of other staff members who I'd like to thank as well. We are now going to show you a video which shows how the exhibition was created. And after that, head curator Roz Sugarman will tell you more about the process with Wendy. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy what promises to be a very interesting webinar. Just one last thing, if you'd like to ask a question, please do so on the chat line and not the Q&A. We will try to get through as many questions as we have time for this afternoon. Thank you very much.
All of this work I'm about to do here needs to disappear at the end. So it will be painted over and it will be gone at the end of the exhibition.
When Wendy first came up with her concept to trace her family roots going back to the Ukraine, she came to the museum with a proposal and showed it to me. And I think I immediately fell in love with it.
Hi, Wendy Sharpe. Thank you. I'm in the temporary exhibition space of Sydney Jewish Museum, and I'm about to paint on all of these walls. I've started to plot them out in chalk, a mural that is inspired by a trip I made in 2019 with my cousin Ruth. We went first of all around the East End and around London, and then we went to the Ukraine. And the plan came from some of these folding books that I actually made when I was in the Ukraine. And I'm not just drawing where I went and what I saw, I'm also trying to show something about how I felt, which is what I want this mural to be.
For Wendy, it's not just the art, it's not just the mural, it's the telling and the processing and the working through and the spilling out of everything that she has inside of her about tracing her family roots and painting on the walls in such a way that it's open enough for a visitor to interpret elements of it for themselves.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
We can't.
No, we
Lovely
can't.
to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too.
I'm so excited.
What motivated you? What inspired you rather to want to do this?
When I started to do this, looking into family history, I found an amazing document written by one of my relatives where he writes a very short paragraph about every member of the family, describing what they were like and various things that happened in their life. I never met Bessie, my grandmother. She died in the 1950s when she was only 50, before I was born, in England. And when he talks about Bessie, he says, you know, how terrible it was that her husband died and da-da-da-da. And then he writes, and she used to sing this song.
Wie is de stijgele, wie is de drijfale, en wie is de schiel?
Where is the street, where is the house? Longing for a place which is gone, and then realizing that when you reach that in your dreams, it no longer exists.
It is the stories of our people. It's the stories of the Jewish people as they moved through time and history from place to place where they're not wanted, or where they have to escape pogroms, or they have to go through wars.
Kamianets-Podilskyi, which I'm painting now, in 1941, over 3 days, 23,000 Jews were killed.
And by its very nature, this mural is ephemeral. And like that world she's painting, it's going to disappear.
We felt like we are looking for the past that's gone anyway, but we also felt like we ourselves were almost ghosts walking through it.
So not only is the mural a first for us, but having an artist actually producing her art in the space as an artist in residence is the first for our museum.
Finished. Finished.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rosalind Sugarman, Head Curator of the Sydney Jewish Museum, as Norman said, and thank you for your introduction, Norman. I had the privilege of being Wendy's studio assistant during the process of her painting the mural. And while washing paint brushes and bringing in clean water, it was an amazing opportunity for me to watch the mural come to life. We were really looking forward to the unexpected influx of people. But sadly, as we know, COVID restrictions required the museum had to close. And a little later, I'm going to ask Wendy how she feels knowing that no one will get to see her mural in the actual space. We've all just watched the mini documentary, and I'm sure you'll agree with me that it's beautiful storytelling, capturing 7 days of painting in only 5 minutes. For this, I would like to thank the videographer and producer Josh Marks and co-producer Judy Menzel, and also the editor Carly Marks. I'd also like to thank Faye Sussman, whose voice you heard singing the Yiddish song and title of the exhibition, Wo ist das Gesele, Where's the Little Street? And I have to say that this song has been stuck in my head for months now. Wendy is one of Australia's favourite artists, and I'm so pleased that she chose our museum as the fitting place for her mural. And I'd like to thank her as well for putting in so much energy and so much love into it. Wendy has won a huge list of prizes and awards over the past years. They include, obviously her most famous win is the Archibald, but they include winning the Archibald and being a finalist in the Archibald 7 times. It includes the Silman Prize and being a finalist in the Silman 14 times, and winning the Portia Geist Memorial Award and the Adelaide Perry Drawing Prize, amongst others. Major commissions that she's undertaken include the Olympic pool size, The major commissions that she has done include an Olympic pool size work at the Philippine Park Centre, a commission by the Australian War Memorial as an Australian official artist, and in fact she was the first woman since World War II to be an official artist. Major projects include working with asylum seekers, working with the State Library, working with the Australian Opera, the Australian Ballet, as well as Circus Oz. And in addition, there have been numerous residencies that Wendy's undertaken in far-flung places such as Antarctica, China, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Mexico. And she's held well over 60 exhibitions internationally and locally. And so it's a huge pleasure to be talking to her today. In fact, I will most likely be switching on mute and stopping the video, and we'll just hand over to Wendy. So Wendy, let me begin. If you want to start your video and unmute yourself, Wendy, if you could begin by starting at the beginning, and if you could tell us where did your journey to search your family roots begin, and let us know, and what did you discover?
Well, as was mentioned in the little video that we just saw, was in 2019 when we were allowed to travel, that I realized that this place where I knew that part of my family came from wasn't just a legend, was actually a real place. And that it was possible to Google it, to do Google Street Views, to look it up on Lonely Planets and so on, and to actually go there. So as was mentioned in that film, I won't repeat it all, but that was very succinct, that my cousin Ruth Fishman and I, Ruth is around the same age as me, she's in London, and we headed off together from London to the Ukraine. And we had engaged a specialist Jewish travel agency, which was really terrific because they helped us translate documents, and they introduced us to places we wouldn't have known. But we also wandered around on our own, which is important. And we were just trying to imagine what it was like for our family and kind of soak it up, if you like. And then with that experience and some of the drawings that I'd done while I was there, I came back to my studio here in Sydney, and I did a lot of sketches and ideas. I did a long Chinese scroll, which is a series of drawings about things that I saw, but also how I felt about it. And I did lots and lots of other studies, a huge amount of stuff. Someone's just said who was it? I don't know if I'm probably not meant to say, but you know, I can say they were called the Jewish Travel Agency. I think they're called. I can find out. You can ask Rosalind or someone. But all of that stuff, I'm so glad I got to do that beforehand. I was anxious that when I was designing this, I didn't want it to be purely a travelogue. I wanted the images to be of specific places that you could recognize. If you've been there, or if you know those places, you would say, yes, I know that's this place in Kiev, or this is this place in Kamianets-Podilskyi, or whatever. But I didn't want it to be a series of postcards. I also wanted it to be quite personal. It's my own journey. And also to encourage, to place what I call more poetic images, which show how I felt about it, not just what it looked like. You know, it's where it is in the museum looks perfect. How insane that it's just coincided with this. Who would know? I think it's anyway, so I think that there's what we're going to do, as was mentioned previously, is we're going to show little bits of a video that was made by Josh Marks, and then I'm going to tell you something about it, and we're going to do that intermittently. I'm trying to look to see if I don't talk for more than 5 minutes-ish. I think I'm probably close to that. So maybe we should start with the first little video, please.
I reckon it's going to look really great ripped. And I can use masking tape to make it look like it's been torn out of a book or something. This is going to be splashy too. And there's no other way you could get that. It really looks like torn wallpaper or something. First of all, I need to find out where all the features are, and I'm slowly trying to plot where they all are in relation to each other. I'm using some sort of pastel thing, and I'm wiping it onto a tissue and smudging it across. The neat lines around it, I'll get rid of all that.
Yeah, that's great. Can you hear me? I think you can, but yeah, that's still up. That's fine. Well, while this is up, I'm just going to tell you a little about it. This is my grandmother, Bessie. As was mentioned in the video, she died before I was born. My father's mother. She was born Bessie Fishman, and she married my grandfather, my actual biological grandfather, Ben Cohen. Ben and her had 2 sons, one my father. They owned a pub, which is the image behind Bessie's face there, that was in the East End of London. Ben tragically died at the age of 28. He was only 28, leaving her with 2 little boys, toddler. My father, I think, was about 5 or something. And she was absolutely devastated, of course, the shock of it. And it really kind of plunged her into poverty too, and it changed everything. Obviously it did, but I realized the ramifications of that really influenced my father's whole life. And I think that there'd be still little bits of me, which, is influenced by that. We are all a sum of everything that's happened before. Anyway, Bessie is someone that I really would love to have met. If I could have met anyone, she would be the one, because she was so close to my father and I was very close to him. And I would love to have actually found out what she was like and have known her personally. I'm drawing there in charcoal, as was said. I wanted to have some areas of charcoal and some paint. I wanted to try and do lots of different things through the mural, so it's not repetitive. There is quite different sections for contrast, but things also need to link. So there is charcoal in Bessie's face, but then there is also some charcoal graves somewhere else. Things are, you know, things kind of come back like another theme, if you like in music, but there's also variety. Behind her, as we saw in that little video, is a sort of a fake wallpaper that you could see you paint over, and then you use this roller to put that pattern over it. And I think that's nice. It has a kind of a, you know, a very old-fashioned feel. It's sort of domestic. And again, it's a contrast with everything else. And behind her also to one side is a map which shows where all these places are in the Ukraine. I'm just back, I'm talking, I always tend to ramble, so I'm trying not to. And I'm just saying, yes, we had left in my story, which I just interrupted by seeing something else, that Bessie married Ben Cohen, he died, leaving her with 2 little boys. She then met Dave Shapovich, who anglicized his name to Sharpe. I actually met Dave and I stayed with him when I was in my 20s in London in a council flat in the East End. So I actually got to know him, and although I didn't meet Bessie, I got to learn a lot about him through him. It's very unusual to have met the person who made up your name. So I'm not related to any Shapoviches. I'm not related to any Sharpes. People say, you related to this Sharpe? That none. I'm related to, on my father's side, Cohens and Fishmans. What else can I say about it? Yeah, so when I was drawing this, I'll just quickly say that when I was drawing this, Bessie, this was the one that I think I found the most moving, because this is a photograph. I don't know when this was taken. I'm thinking probably 1940s. I'm not sure, but whatever it is, how extraordinary that there she is posing for this photograph in her probably her best dress. Looked like her and Dave were, you know, going somewhere special. And all these years later, her granddaughter, who she never met and who she never even knew was born, is there doing a huge drawing of her on the walls of the Sydney Jewish Museum, and also referencing the song that she used to sing, which I only sort of found out by chance. So it's all, you know, quite amazing and stranger than fiction. Anyway, I think we're going to now go on to another little vignette. So if we can show the next video, please.
So I'm just going to copy this. This is something where I am actually, some things are from imagination, but obviously this image is specific. So
mein Weintig ist groß, als ist geblieben, ach Hulem noch läuft. Nicht du mehr dus Gesele, nicht du mehr du Stieb, nicht du mehr dus Jingele, Weimen hab lieb. Nicht du mehr dus Gesele, nicht du mehr du Stieb. Du singele, weimen hobli.
This is a large copy, a loose copy of a photograph of the Fishman family, Bessie's family, in around 1907, I think. And Bessie, my grandmother, is the little girl right in the middle of the picture wearing the white dress, tiny little girl. My great-grandmother, her mother, my great-grandmother, Rachel, is there seated, and also Moisha or Morris, my great-grandfather. They hadn't arrived, they'd only recently arrived from the Ukraine, and they were in the East End of London. All those children around her, I've got to know some of the offspring of those, you know, the children of the children around her. My cousin Ruth, for example, is the granddaughter of the tallest boy standing at the back, Simon. So, you know, we both come from this family. It's so poignant, this, because there they are. It's not long since they've arrived. Moisha, Morris, died not that long after this too. So there's another person who died young, though I can't remember exactly, late 30s perhaps, leaving Rachel, my great-grandmother, with all of these children to look after. He was a tailor, as almost all these people were, or they worked in tailoring. Underneath this painting, there is, I've numbered all the characters, the people in this, and I've said who they all are. It's in pencil underneath. There's little bits of text through it all, but I didn't want it to make it text heavy. I wanted it to be pictorial. It can't really all be about that. I'll just mention also that my father, Alan Sharpe, the historian, died in 2002, which is a long time ago now. And he was a writer, as I just said, and he left a suitcase full of diaries. And because he was a writer and always wanted to be a writer, he, particularly when he was a young man, wrote very personal, long entries about how he felt. Lots of book reviews and things, but also how he felt. And I knew I was going to go through and read all these, but I just couldn't bring myself to it. And then I thought, if I'm doing this, if I'm going to go to the Ukraine, if I'm doing this mural, I have to do it. If I'm not doing it now, I've just got to. So I sat down and I read them. So I was really kind of living. I started when I was reading the diaries from the more recent ones, going back in time. And there was a fascinating period as I was going backwards till the age of when he was about 13. I found that after a certain age, I realized that although my father was incredibly wise and always gave me fantastic non-judgmental advice to myself, there was a point as I went back in time where I realized I could give him advice. I saw what he was like when he was a 20-year-old, when he was a teenager, and I got a little sense of what that time was like, and also how he met my mother, how it was when they were first together. My mother, Marjorie, originally from Yorkshire, not Jewish background, and how all that went down for a start, as well as other things. But I think this photograph, there they are, frozen in time. What had happened just before? All the boys are given a big book to hold by the photographer to try and make them look learned. Were the children squirming just before this photo was taken? What happened just after? It's there's always something unnerving and poignant about old photographs, and particularly when it's your own family. So aren't I lucky to have this? And okay, I think we're going to move on to the next little video.
to water this down a hell of a lot. This is going to pour everywhere.
Otis dus teichale, otis mir, otis dus dreifale, otis de schir, otis dus teichale, otis de mir, otis dus dreifale, otis de schir.
Right, so we just saw the two cemeteries which are depicted in the mural. Originally I had this overgrown one, which is on the screen right now, much bigger in the mural than I realized, although I didn't want to make it all about cemeteries, but obviously that is important. So I made that one smaller. The first cemetery that we saw in this little video is where my grandparents and my great-grandmother and Dave Sharpe, my non-biological grandfather, are all buried, as well as other family members in England, around London. Two different graveyards. I combined them and pretended that they were all close together, although they actually weren't. It was the first time I'd actually been to an Orthodox Jewish cemetery, and it was incredibly stark. I was surprised how stark it had been, with no trees, no flowers. The day that Ruth and I visited, it was a rainy, awful kind of day, very appropriate for going to a cemetery, I suppose. And I realized, though, that there is something very moving about the fact that, yes, there's no flowers, but on Bessie's grave, there was a couple of stones which were left there as a tribute from someone. And I think that they were possibly left by my father when he visited that graveyard in the late 80s. That was possibly from him. So, you know, it's interesting because they don't, unlike flowers, of course, they don't rot, it just stays there. All that was very moving, particularly again seeing my grandfather, Ben Cohen's grave, died at the age of 28. Although the graves, they were very austere and there was nothing very personal about them, the inscription on his grave was such that you could still feel the shock of such a young man, and he's only in his late 20s, the death of such a man, and the devastation that left. It's written in the inscription. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. Just to tell you a couple of other things. Oh yes, this particular graveyard we're looking at here now, this one is a graveyard that's very, very overgrown, and we saw lots of very, very, very overgrown graveyards in the Ukraine. This one is based on one that we saw in Chernovitsy. I think I've pronounced it a little bit right, probably a little bit wrong. I can never remember how to pronounce that, which is not actually where our family came from, but it's where we flew into from Kiev, which is where we went first to Kiev, then to this place, and then we went by road to Kamianets-Podilskyi, where the family was from. All the graveyards that we saw, though, were run down and overgrown like this. Headstones really higgledy-piggledy and all unkept. In one particular graveyard, this one that I was thinking of, we walked in there and it seemed to go on forever. We could not see the end of it. We were in there walking through, and we got up onto the top of this rise to see where it finished, and we couldn't see the end. That is drawn in charcoal. Almost all of the mural is painted in acrylic paint, just out of interest for anyone who's interested in the painting thing. It's in artist acrylic, house paint, all different types of acrylic paint, but it's all acrylic. And because we always knew, even though obviously we didn't think there was going to be lockdown, and we expected that there would have been a couple of months where people could come and see this exhibition, we always knew it was going to be destroyed at the end, which does make sense thematically, because it should be ephemeral, because the whole concept about it is looking for something that has disappeared. But one of the things that was really great about it was that I could splash paint all over the floor. Don't need to clear it away, because the floor is also going to totally change. So, you know, it's a shame you can't go in there, because if you could, you could see how it actually is. We didn't need any drop sheets. The other, just to quickly back onto this image that's on screen. In my original design, I was going to put a memorial that is there. There's a few memorials. Mostly we found that anything to do with Jewish people had been wiped, and old synagogues that had been turned into things like cinemas and so on. There was no mention, there was no nothing. It was just trying to wipe out history altogether. But there was a few monuments, and there was a monument to these 23,000 Jewish people that were murdered over 3 days in 1941 in Kamianets-Podilskyi. My family, as far as I know, left, because they left around, you know, 1900-ish. But if there was anyone that I'm related to left, they would have been killed, of course. I was going to paint that monument, but then I thought, look, it just looks like an obelisk. It doesn't really show what it was. So I've just got this kind of ghostly, despairing face floating up there. And I've also included some sunflowers, because there was endless fields of sunflowers. When we were there, they were dead, but there were the sunflowers there. And, you know, if you watch if you read that book or see the great film, Everything is Illuminated by John Safran Foer, it does show these fields of sunflowers, which really are all over the place. And the beauty of those and the horror of what actually happened there, I think, is you know, quite a contrast. So let's go on to the next little video.
Okay, now turn please more towards the wall, because you're walking away from me. Yeah, that's it. That's enough. Thank you. That's great, Rosalind. So that's night. So it's it's going to be very, very dramatic and dark. That needs to be watered down to high heavens.
This is a painting of the huge fortress in Kamianets-Podilskyi. Where this is in southwest Ukraine. We know the family came from here. We also traced them to a small little port town on the Dniester River, very close, well, nowadays by road, comparatively close by, called Yampil or Yampol. And then we also know that where they actually were part of them were at least, was in Moldova, which is on the other side of the Dnester River. But of course, we didn't get to go there, and we had hoped we would have done last year, but obviously there was no travel. Now, this fortress in Kamianets-Podilskyi has made this place a tourist attraction. If you look up on the Lonely Planet, it's something like number 6 in top 10 things to see in the Ukraine. And if you Google Kamianets-Podilskyi, the 2 things that come up is, 1, this fortress, and it's an extraordinary place too, not just the fortress, but it's up on a kind of a rocky outcrop. And there's all these valleys and outcrops. It's an extraordinary landscape. But anyway, this fortress comes up, medieval fortress, and then also the terrible massacre that I just mentioned of Jewish people during the Second World War. So they're the 2 things that it's known for. And when we arrived there, we didn't realize, when I was booking all this stuff, I didn't realize that it coincided with the National Day for the Ukraine. So it was really crowded, and we got to see Ukrainian dancing and how they presented themselves, and Ukrainian tourists from everywhere. And, you know, it was actually quite an interesting time to be there. Just in that little bit of video that we just saw, I was looking in the mirror, just if you're thinking, what am I doing? I'm not trying to see what I looked like while I'm painting. What I was doing was I was looking in the mirror, using the mirror like a rear view mirror. So I'm holding it up, I'm looking at the painting behind me, reflected in the mirror, and it's reversed in the mirror, and it's helping me to get a fresh look. So it's just helping me to see it, what I'm working on, in a new way. It's very handy if anyone paints or draws. That's a very useful thing to do. And just to remind you that all of this work I did in under a week. It's probably about 6 days work, although it's not 6 days work, it's weeks and months of work because of all the design and planning that went along before it. And I also just want to say again how beautiful it is to hear Faye Sussman singing that lovely song. It has very, very, it's got the most wonderful, simple, moving lyrics that, you know, if you get a chance to read them, I think there'll probably be somewhere you can look them up to read the words if you don't understand Yiddish, which I don't. They are something that resonates obviously with all Jewish people, but it would resonate with any displaced people or any asylum seekers, refugees, anyone who's had to leave their homeland. And this is very iconic. I mean, people recognize this. Anyone who goes to this area of the Ukraine knows what this is. We visited there at night. We went there during the day, and I did lots and lots of drawings of it. I was trying to think what else I can say as we lead towards the end of this. As I said, there's a bit of text. There's I've described a little bit about where we were, but I think it's mostly something that's sort of self-explanatory. And I think from some feedback that I've received from people that although it is of specific places like this place in the Ukraine, the story is one that would resonate with so many people, particularly, of course, those of Jewish background. Even if your family don't come from the Ukraine, they come from Poland or Russia or Germany or wherever, it's a similar story. And also in this temporary exhibition space at the Jewish Museum, I, of course, designed it for this space, but it actually works so well because it is a room on its own. When you walk in, you are surrounded by the mural, as you could see from that early video where we panned around. You sort of go on a journey yourself as you walk through it. In a way, this work is a culmination of different things I've been doing over decades. It's certainly the most personal thing that I've done in this way, but it also relates to lots of other things I've done before. I've worked on other large mural things for various things, which I won't go into all of it. But I have also done lots of continuous artist books, which are long scrolls or concertina books, where they're a journey, where one thing happens, the next thing happens, we see this, we see this. So it's kind of all of that information that I've acquired from all of those things that I've done before have really come to fruition in this work. And, you know, I'm really glad that we have this webinar, but also that we have this great little film that, that Josh has made. And if it's going to be destroyed, which it is, because, you know, the ridiculous timing of it's just chance, at least I have these things, and I also have some great photographs of it. So, you know, it's it'll still exist in that way, just like the story itself, which in this song, by the way, it says, just to recap that quickly, where it says, where is the little street, where is the house, where is the girl I loved, etc. Then it says, here is the house, here, etc. And then it says, once inside the house, the pain is great, all that remains is a dream. No more little house, no more little street, no more girl I loved. So it's about thinking of a place, going to it in your dreams or in your imagination, and then realizing it is no more, which is what this is. And I'll just say one last thing before I think Rosalind's going to come in a second, but somewhere in this mural, I have written something which you can't see in this film, but I want to just say it because it's one of my very favorite little lines of poetry by an Argentinian poet called Borges. And it says, I am all those who are no more. And that's what we all are. We are all made up of all of the people who have gone before us. And anyway, I think that's it. And I think Rosalind is going to come in now, and here she is.
Thank you, Wendy, for sharing those incredibly personal insights with us. And in effect, you need absolutely no prompting, because anything that I might have wished to ask you, I think you've very much covered. And I think we've shared and you've explained beautifully those 4 vignettes. And I'm sure everyone watching will realize that that's only 4 of about a dozen sort of isolated vignettes that are all beautifully joined together and flow together. And I guess one of the disadvantages of not being immersed in the mural, in the space, is that the scale is not something that's apparent when we are watching it is. I'm really pleased that you made a double point of saying that it was your intention from the outset to have it painted over, because I think there are many people sort of angry and horrified that the museum is going to paint it over. So I'm really pleased you made the point that that was the intention, because in a sense what you're trying to say is that just like that world that was, where there were, thousands and thousands of Jewish communities that existed and that no longer exist. And so that has resonance with the work that you're doing. But how does it feel for you, knowing that no one will actually see it in this space?
Well, what was supposed to happen, as you say, Rosalind, and of course, obviously, as you know, that was meant to have started at work for a few days. Then there was meant to be a couple of sometimes when members of the public could come and watch me finishing it off. And then we were going to have some events in there and so on. And then it was going to be open to the public for 7 weeks, close to a couple of months. I liked the idea that it was going to be totally destroyed, because it does relate to it's poetic, that's it disappears. But I wanted people to see it first. Look, it's really disappointing, but there's nothing I can do about it. And look, isn't it fantastic that we have the technology to do this? And there's nothing I can do about it. I'll have lots of images of it. As you say, though, also, Rosalind, that we didn't when we saw the film and the bits of video we have seen, we haven't really, well, we've seen me painting it. That shows you the scale a bit, but you don't quite understand it. It is It's about 40 meters long, or a little more. It is, as you could see at the very beginning, a kind of a rectangular room you walk into and you walk around. So yeah, it's really disappointing, but you know, there's just no way we could possibly have known that. Who knows, it would coincide with the worst lockdown we've had.
I know that there are a lot of fans and followers, and there are a lot of questions, and I'm going to actually hand over now to my colleague Aviva Wolf, because she will address some of the questions and give a final vote of thanks. And it was lovely chatting with you, Wendy.
Thanks,
and honestly, what a privilege it was for me. I realized how special it was to be there with you. And I know that at the time you spoke so much, you know, to yourself and in a way to an imagined audience, and just explaining what you were doing while you were painting, as if there was an audience in the room.
I'm speaking. See, what I was doing was actually talking about what I needed to do. I'm just speaking my thoughts because you were there. But it's impossible. While I'm painting, I can say, oh, I think I need to change that. Maybe that needs more blue. I don't like that. I'll wipe it out. I can say that. But if I'm in the middle of drawing someone's eye, I can't talk about what it was like as an art student. You know, you can't. Well, I can't do two things, but you can say what you were thinking about. And you know, look, I'm pleased with it, and we'll have some good images.
We will do that.
Thank you, Rosalind, very much for your help. And everyone at the Jewish Museum, actually, for Viva and everybody. So thank you, Norman, etc.
Wendy, I'm privileged to be one of those who've been able to see the mural. And I think we've got to look at glass half full today, because I think the wonderful part about this is that we've actually heard your explanation. And I think that brings it to life. You know, hearing the story, hearing your journey brings this kind of exhibition to life, because people may have just wandered through and not had the full story. So everyone online has been complimenting you, not only on the magnificent mural, which everyone is absolutely devastated about missing and not being able to see, but it will be available in other formats. We have recorded today's event, and as you said, there's lots of videos and lots of recordings. Someone even suggested a photograph of books, you know, book of photographs, which I thought, wow, that is a wonderful, wonderful
nice idea. Actually, yeah, because you could also put, besides the mural, you could also put family photos. And actually, there was one other thing that we were going to do, which we didn't end up doing for the exhibition, was the mural was supposed to be around the walls, but down the center of the room was going to be some display cases, which had studies for the mural, photographs, and all sorts of Jewish memorabilia and bits and pieces from my family down the center. But there was just no point doing that, because that's something that you can't see. But those sorts of things could be in a book. It's possible.
I think a book is a wonderful idea. We've got a community stories department, so we'll go from showing your event to publicizing the book. People wanted to know if you felt a connection to your grandmother, because a few people commented that there's such a likeness. They looked at you and they looked at her and they thought there was an incredible likeness. Do you ever note that? And do you feel an incredible connection having painted her and brought her to life?
I in that particular photo of her, I do look like her in that photo. She has similar eyes to me in that photo. In other photos, I don't see it, but in that one, her eyes look like mine. I know who I actually look like most of all is Ben, her husband who died. My father looked exactly like Ben. If you look at pictures of my father as a young man, and Ben, of course, who never got to be anything but a young man, it looks like my father in fancy dress. They look so similar, and I'm following him. So I look like Ben Cohen, and that's interesting, because it's also, he died so long ago, but I've got him in me as well as all of these other people.
And I think the beauty of this is that it will remain in our minds, because it is ephemeral and fleeting and all those words we've used. Whether people are actually going to see it or not, it was going to disappear.
Yes.
So it's that story that came and went, but will remain in our minds. And I often lie in bed at night thinking of these beautiful parts of the mural, and I think those memories will remain, and we will certainly share many of the photos, and having heard the story, I think it's a memory. I think it's a beautiful way of describing the exhibition. Do you agree?
I think that's true. I mean, I would have liked people to have seen it first, but it is a memory, and that's what that song, the beautiful song that Faye was singing, it's about remembering something, and which was why I did think I actually thought it was great that it went. You know, in the film that Josh has made that we saw at the beginning, eventually when it is destroyed, having that in it is part of it, that it's a place that's gone.
There are just too many questions and too many accolades for me to even get through, but I just want to tell everyone that this isn't the end of Seeing Wendy. Next Sunday, we're going to have a fabulous discussion with Wendy and her partner and Elizabeth Fortescue. So it's going to be Bernard Ollis, your wonderful partner, who's also an artist and who is director of the New South Wales Art School. And Wendy, they're going to discuss art and memory, and art and a way of showing family history through art. So I think that is going to be another fabulous discussion. So please go onto the Sydney Jewish Museum website and book for the webinar next Sunday at 4 p.m. So rather than 3 p.m., it's a 4 p.m. start. I want to thank Elizabeth as well for her wonderful article in the Telegraph today, as well as Nick Glover and Martin Newman for their fabulous articles in the Herald and the Financial Review. So you've really been in all the papers this weekend, Wendy.
And Simon Marnie on Sydney ABC too.
So it's not in person, it's really spread far and wide, and it's piqued a lot of interest, and I think many people will be able to see it in some way or another. I want to thank everybody for being with us today. It's been such a wonderful event, and it's really warmed my heart that we've been able to put this on. Let's say hello to everyone in the background. I want to thank Rosalind. Rosalind was so excited about this exhibition from the very day that she knew it was going to happen. So I'm really sad for her as well, but I'm glad she got to be your #1 paint washer and brusher.
She was fantastic.
Norman, thank you on behalf of the museum and for agreeing that Wendy could put this on. Little did we know what was ahead of us, but thank you. And I want to thank Simon, who's been our expert tech person in the background, who so ably ran the webinar and showed all the videos. So thank you to you, Simon. Please, everybody, stay well, stay safe. And if I may say so, if you can, please get vaccinated. Wendy, thank you again for a beautiful afternoon and for sharing your insights, your memories, and kol hakavod. I don't know if you know that saying. It just means like really well done on this really beautiful piece of work, and I'm sure it will come to life in many other forms. And see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.
There's still a lot of people on, so maybe we'll chat offline.
Okay, so we get off. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you so much.